Great to have you on the podcast. Looking forward to the show. We're going to be chatting with and meeting Karen Beattie today from the Growth Faculty. You've probably heard of it. The Growth Faculty is fantastic. We're going to be chatting about entrepreneurship and success and what it takes, some of the challenges that they faced. We open up by talking about how we both handled having to change our business models radically. So obviously the International Coaching Institute was completely live in the room, and if that's not a pivot to suddenly go online in 4 days with this amazing team, I don't know what is. So we talk about that to open. Then we talk about the different guests they've brought in from around the world, how they've moved online, what it takes to succeed in business. And I do my little rant, one of my favorites, that not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur, and that needs to be okay. But the conversation is great, and I do love connecting with business women. And if you love hearing about how successful businesses do their thing, then this is the podcast for you. Hey, Karen, it's so great that you're joining us here today. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me, Sharon.
How many Zooms have you done in the last 12 months?
I'd hate to think. Probably not as many as a lot of people have, but you would be in the hundreds. And interestingly, it's exhausting, isn't it? It's more exhausting than a phone call.
Yeah, yes, it is. I now coach by phone and not by Zoom, because having to think about me on the screen as well as being fully present to them, it's doing me in, or I blank out me. I can't see me anymore.
Yes.
And I just want to give all my attention to my clients. So I'm having to just zone out anything peripheral. So I'm back old school. Like I'd go fax if I could, but I'll go for the phone.
I completely understand.
Understand.
Yes. And how is, I'm interested to know, did you have to make much of a pivot when COVID hit? I mean, obviously you run training programs, and I'm curious, the Coaching Institute, were they all done face-to-face? And
everything was face-to-face. So I'm going to get the numbers a little wrong, Karen, but I'll share with you the story. We run probably 80 plus events a year, probably more, all of them in the building, with the rare exceptions along the way. And my husband and I started reading the headlines early February and cancelled all international flights early February. And then beginning of March, the rumbles got bigger, and instead of waiting for it, we were online in 4 days before it was required, knowing what was coming. And our team were unbelievable. So we went 100% offline to 100% online in 4 days.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it was a huge team effort. We sent everybody home. Pretty well everybody. We kept our business, adult education, public broadcasting, and we also import PPE are all required industries. So in those ways, we were very, very fortunate. We didn't have to send everybody home.
Sure.
But the amount of logistics involved in setting up 35 people around the country, making sure they've got all the equipment they need. Equipment became, I don't know if you remember, hard to buy. Modems became like solid gold bricks. And it got done with this incredible team. Kudos to David, the White Knight. He's our logistics guy and projects manager, and the head. Everybody just threw in and just made it happen. And we had an event that weekend that we moved 100% online, and that was it from there. We haven't looked back, and we're still now 100% online. And because of it, there are so many obviously unbelievably bad things about the virus, but what it has given us as an entrepreneurial company is a gift into a new way of doing business. And I'm sure that's your story as well, that it made us and forced our hand to do what we had been putting off and to do what we didn't think anybody would want. And it just forced our hand. Necessity is the mother of invention. We just had to. And it worked unbelievably well. And I know that's not the case for everybody in our space. There's plenty of coaching schools who haven't done that. And they're now saying, isn't it great we can get back in the room? We're not saying, isn't it great we can get back in the room? Because we can reach people in hundreds of countries. We're in over nearly 100 countries now because we're online. If we go back in the room, Karen, what do? All these beautiful people we've been serving and connecting with and providing value with, do we now just beam them in there on the edge whilst I've got an actual room of people? So we're loving that we get to serve at a different level and a different way. And because of it, we just bought the domain, theinternationalcoachinginstitute.com instead of thecoachinginstitute.com.au, because we're going to move, thank you, finally, you're probably thinking, internationally, completely online with modularized and access to facilitators all around the world. So that one pivot has just created this domino effect of new decisions and pathways to decisions that were clearly obvious. You're probably hearing this thinking, that's obvious, but it wasn't to us. We had resistance around what it meant to be with us. So that's a long answer, but it's been an incredible, extraordinary opening. And our business did better last year than any other year.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you.
I'm curious to know, in that transition, I mean, you only had a 4-day transition though. At any time, were you sort of in doubt about people's capacity to move online at that time? Because that's very early movement, right? And I know that was a concern of ours. And it's why we didn't move earlier before COVID. But I think COVID forced the hand on that and people's adaptability to training and learning online, of course. Because they had no other option. But, you know, in that transition, when you were so early, did it ever cross your mind, it's like, this might not work? Or did you just went, we have got to do this, and, you know, let's hope?
Well, firstly, we had to do it. So we transitioned just before the lockdowns became required here in Victoria. We could see it was coming. We also saw the fear. A lot of people, we'd had an event just before that in Newcastle, and people weren't showing up. I was like, well, okay, so people are going to be at home, so obviously they're going to go online. So there were so many early indicators of how our market was going to immediately do the same pivot. And then people are going to be at home. Okay, so what are they going to do at home? They're going to get educated. So education, informal education versus university education, had to go up. So it seemed an inevitability, given nobody, you know, half of the room that was meant to show up in Newcastle showed up. That's a pretty good indicator of what it's going to be like if we kept trying to force it here in Melbourne. Sure. Plus, the early warnings from Victoria were that wasn't going to be available to us. So we also may have been really naive, but we just didn't see how it could be a problem because everyone had to do it. We weren't the exception suddenly dumping face-to-face trainings. Everyone was in the same position. We were just really fortunate. We've got probably $500,000 invested in studio and all the cameras you need and the lighting. So it wasn't difficult in terms of logistics, but we just didn't think that this wouldn't work because everybody had to do it. How about you guys?
Well, you know, when COVID hit, we were 2 weeks away from delivering our largest event.
Oh, wow.
Company. So that was due to take place on the 23rd of March. And,
what was the event?
You know, it was with Simon Sinek. We're across 3 cities. Melbourne.
I bought tickets to that event. I remember.
Yes. So, you know, we were, and look, you know, I was, you know, on the phone every day to venues. I could see the impacts. I could see it's like this tsunami coming ahead, but in slow motion. And you just like, you know, can we get past, can we deliver this event? We just need to deliver this event, and then we can deal with COVID after. But that did not happen. And we end up making the announcement that we were moving the event prior to the government, you know, stipulating that, you know, these meetings and events. And I think that fared us well in the eyes of our customer. But I mean, prior to that, companies were already starting to pull and saying, look, you know, we don't want, you know, the safety of their staff, right? So we completely got that. So, I mean, our first thing was like, okay, our priority was to make our, you know, speakers feel safe, and also, you know, our clients. So we scrambled to move that event, and it's not easy when you're coming across 3 cities, 12,000 delegates, you know, so that consumed us for the first 2 weeks. We finally found a date in February 2021, and we moved it, and we notified all our, you know, customers and said, listen, we've moved it. Great. So we had a moment of relief. It's like, okay, that's done. And we looked up, and then we were staring down the barrel of 2020 and not an event in sight, you know, and we just went, right, okay. So, you know, we 98% of our business is live events, right? So we then obviously moved into damage control and had a look. So unfortunately, we had to let you know, a lot of our team go. I remember that being just the hardest day because, you know, prior to that, we were on an upward, you know, trajectory. You know, we just did the Obamas in Singapore in December. You know, Simon was our largest event. We had Seth coming out in May. We just launched an event in Chicago. You know, we were like 2020 was going to be our year. All this like 10 years of hard work and, you know, just disappearing, you know, just crumbling in front of you. So we, unfortunately, yes, we first had to let the team go, and then we looked up and said, okay, you know, and the question was, how do we make it to February 2021, right? So that's our first live event. How do we do that? And, you know, it was such the wrong question, right?
Yeah.
It's all we knew. And then, you know, we go into work every day, optimistic that we can control the things around us. Let's make this happen. You know, the entrepreneurial mindset, this is going to be different. And then at the end of the day, you know, punches left, right, and center. You kind of walk into, well, actually, there's a lot more things out of our control. And then we just had to flip the question. I said, this is not the question we should be asking ourselves. It's like, how do we build a business that does not have to rely on this event in February 2021, no matter what happens?
That's it.
And, you know, what are we in control of? Like, and, you know, fortunately, we did have a digital aspect of our business, which we had an online book club and a membership, which was kind of a bit of the unloved child. And, you know, I had it for 4 years. And I got challenged on it a number of times. Do you really need this? You know, you've got a live event business. It was great quality, you know, it just, you know, as you know, events just sucks time and energy and resources. And, you know, that's where we're always drawn to. So anyway, we looked at that and we said, right, okay, what have we got? You know, been in business 10 years. So fantastic relationships with speakers, right? Let's reach out to them. How can we help you? How can you help us? Right? Because they were also suffering. We got an amazing community that trusted us. So we went out to them, CEOs and business leaders, and we said, right, what do you need to know right now? Like, what is going to help you get you through? You know, I joined a lot of CEO roundtables virtually, and, you know, so people will put them on, you know, are complimentary. So I'd join and I'd hear other CEOs talking. We'd actually hosted a few ourselves, you know, and so we took a group across to spend some time with Jim Collins, and we brought those CEOs together, and it was really, really fascinating to hear what their challenges were. And then the third thing is like, okay, we got this digital platform. How do we scale this without investing in any development? Because, you know, there was no cash to spend. Like, so what do we do? So we focused on those three things and we stuck to our core. You know, our whole reason for being is to deliver the best content, ideas, you know, practical frameworks to audiences in Australia. And like you, our international audience grew because, you know, geographically live events, geographically bound. So, you know, our whole reason for being was bringing international authors to Australia so that the SME or the Australian business leaders can have access to them, right? However, so we just did that. We moved that virtually. And I remember when we ran our first live virtual event, masterclass, we're like, gosh, we hope this works. Because we're, you know, paid promoters of events. And I remember us doing the happy dance when we started to get.
So what was your first one?
It was with a gentleman by the name of Mark Bonchek. He was, we had worked with him through Singularity University, and his stuff is all about shift thinking, right? So he was the first person I called, and I said, Mark, what do we do? And so he ran the first masterclass, and he's the one that said to me, he goes, Karen, you know, you really got to, you know, because I was like a deer in the headlights, you know, it's kind of like, you know, the fear, the lack of sleep, what do we do? And he said, just look internally and see what you've got. Everything you need is within you, right? And it just helped me just focus instead of going, you know, what's out there? What should we be doing? So that's the first one. Seth Godin was our second, because we did have a live event with him, and he was fantastic. Let's brainstorm, Karen. Let's see what we can do. You're right. Let's see what we can do together. And we just created this live event with him. Liz Wiseman came to the party. Awesome multipliers, you know, Liz and her work. And of course, Jim Collins, you know, he actually reached out to me just saying, hey, how are you? Thinking of you. What's going on? How can I help? And so, of course, his stuff is right for this kind of, you know, for this environment, Stockdale Paradox. You know, so we ran our first really big live event with him, and we built out a whole venue, like a whole virtual venue platform thing, which kind of blew everyone away. And that really set us up. And you know, we're just thankful. And, it was because of our relationships with
And
us.
you sold tickets into those master classes?
Yes, we sold tickets into those master
Well
classes.
done. How was it when that started happening? So March, the world ended. Then when was your first masterclass?
It was end of April. End of April.
Yeah. So 2 months of your first major pivot. What was it like to see, okay, this ship's still floating. This works. What was that like for you and the team?
It was, it was a bit of a relief. We just felt that we still had a long way to go, but, I guess what we did was we iterated and iterated, this works, this doesn't work, we did 90-minute classes and everyone's going like, no one's going to be on there for 90 minutes. It's, 45 minutes max. And we're like, no, this is the modus operandi. We did full day workshops. Don't do full day workshops, do 90-minute keynote sessions. So we stuck with what we do best.
Yeah.
And deliver heaps of content. So we were really grateful for that. And we thought, okay, there's something in this, because it was a bit of the wild, wild west. There was speakers, like there was free content everywhere. I think that was our biggest challenge, right?
Yeah.
Free content everywhere. But it's like but it was a different style. When it's free content, is a different style of delivery. So we were relieved, to say the least. And we just kept looking, what else can we do? What else can we do? So after the first session, by the time we got to July, we decided, because initially we thought, what if we bundle these masterclasses into our existing membership and provide a massive load of value?
Yeah.
And we weren't brave enough to do it back in April, right?
Okay.
But by the time July came along, we said, right, we're doing this.
Yeah.
So that was the next.
Was that attrition? Was it taking to a different? So was it a breakdown in like, oh my God, let's hope this works, or is it more, let's give this a go? We're ready to think that way, because I get that there can be both.
Yes, it wasn't about attrition. It was about, look, people are interested and they're willing to pay. It was just about the transaction, right? And I've always had this thought about membership in the way that I would love to include all my events in a membership.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But in the live event situation, every single event's so different,
locations.
Do it. Then all of a sudden we've got these kind of virtual events, and I'm like, 90 minutes, you can control the costs. Let's go. I know what I'm up for. And we said, well, we've got to do. And I guess that the thought was we have to do something different, because we might have pivoted quite quickly, as a lot of people thought we had, but everyone's catching up. I mean, it wasn't revolutionary what we were doing. And so I was like, we're just going to be competing with everybody else out there on the masterclass world, virtual masterclass, virtual live event, virtual workshop. So we said, well, we have to do something different again. So let's just do this and see. And we gave it a 3-month trial. So that, firing your bullets and then throwing the cannonball out, that, right? So, and we did it. And
how much of entrepreneurship though is shooting and then figuring out what the target was, and then what I do is then justify it afterwards. Oh yeah, no, I was always going for that.
Planned it the whole time.
It was so strategic. Yeah. So how did memberships go? Do you mind me asking?
It doubled.
Oh, I'm so pleased.
It doubled, and and it is where we are focusing. It is.
And that would be your new business model.
Yeah. It was. Look, we had the membership platform prior to COVID, and it was that project that we needed to do, right? And as you said, COVID forced the hand. Yeah. Like, well, you got no choice. And thank God we had this all set up. Yeah. So we had a subscription back end, and look, our website is all been patched together. It's one big, bandage job for us to be. But the fact that we were able to do that really quickly, that we had the essence of it there, we were just able to leverage what we had. But our vision for this is so much different and larger than what we first started. So, because interestingly, mid 2019, I actually hired a head of digital and innovation. So we were looking to go that way, right? And hired a CEO that had fintech experience. So that was 6 months before COVID. And I look back on that and went, thank God, so we were heading that way, but it's the wonderful thing about it. It's forcing us to really make it happen and go quickly. So, So
is that now your business model moving forward?
Yes.
I love it. That's got sustainability.
And I would consider ourselves back in startup phase, but we're in the advantage that we have is we're not starting from scratch. We've got all the relationships with the speakers. We've got a beautiful community of business leaders and CEOs, and now we're bringing a new start.
And you have all that knowledge, but you're not undoing the knowledge you've built over these years doing it. You bring all of it. It's not a startup mindset.
Yeah. No, it's not a startup mindset at all. So it's kind of the beauty of it, it's kind of keeping core and and extending. So yeah, it's quite exciting. It's quite exciting. And I'm learning, and as an entrepreneur, I'm learning all about digital platforms, and platform revolution. And so like it's quite, for me, I'm stretched once again. And learning new things that, whereas, at live events was kind of turnkey for us. We can do it with our eyes shut. Like we knew there's a formula around it. We promote, we market, we deliver, and we had that down pat. And so, now we're all stretched. And I think that was the challenge of last year, is that, it was a sprint. It was a sprint to survive. But while you're surviving and managing the chaos, you're also looking at the opportunity and trying to build that out. And that was what the most challenging thing about last year is managing them both.
Yeah, I see the scramble, but I see you putting the foundations. That mean the scramble got you through, but the foundations is what's going to carry you forward.
Yeah.
The scramble's not sustainable. I see too many business owners still doing scramble. You've got to build the foundations of the new business.
Yeah. Because that's just really challenging
it really is. The way we looked at it was this is going to last 2 years minimum. And so all business decisions have to be made on a 2-year time horizon to 5-year. So I'm a natural pessimist. Can you believe my business? I really am. So if I thought about what would be really bad? This goes for 2 to 4 years, 2 to 3 years. What business decisions would you make today if that were true? So we made the business decisions early on this being the way the world's going to be for a while. Because people were reacting I didn't have any concept of how bad it was. I don't know about you. I'm very naive with that. I saw the headlines, but I didn't really connect with it because it wasn't, I don't know why, because I have never had anything bad to have to deal with. I've never been in a war. I had to deal, one of the things I said to my husband for 20 years, I'm so glad I've never been in a major recession. Shut up. So I was really naive about it, but I could see the way others were acting and experts were acting, and they weren't talking short term. It wasn't SARS, like came out and hit a bit of Singapore and then floated away, because if you had the infection, you immediately had if you had the virus, you immediately had a temperature. We didn't have that luck with COVID. There wasn't necessarily temperature with it. So that meant I realized it was going to have to go around the world. You couldn't keep it out of the world because people had to bring it in because you didn't show symptoms. So with those two pieces of information, we've acted like this is permanent and this is the new reality. And that's been helpful because it's meant I don't work with false hope. I haven't worked with any false hope that it'll be gone soon or by October last year we'll be fine. Yeah. And it's meant we've been able to make quite brave decisions and launch off without a net because there isn't going to be in the room in 6 months' time. And that's really been helpful for us.
And that's that, long-term mindset. And those that have taken that on quite early have made some substantial changes, because there's no going back, whatever that is, there's no going back. And I think it's taken people a bit longer, some people a bit longer to adapt to that concept. Yeah. So, and you're in my industry, which has been decimated, basically, it's been heartbreaking, and nothing really replaces the live event. It will come back. But I think, as promoters or as deliverers of training, that the experience, we have to do so much more to bring people in, because, the time and effort and the energy to travel to get to the event, because everyone's just adapted to, I get to sit at my computer, and what they've realized is the amount of time, the savings and cost, but also you can deliver content virtually. I mean, the aspect that's missing is the networking, the brainstorming, and, at some stage we're going to master the art of that. We're going to skill up in that area. So it's going to have to be pretty special for people to really take the time to get in their car or get on a plane and go somewhere and meet face to face. And, and you've got to really deliver something quite powerful, so.
And also, And speaking for Australia, you get on a plane, you don't even fly back. Like with the borders coming up in. I flew to Perth to visit my mum for the first time in a year at Christmas time, flew out, and 3 days later, the borders went up, and anybody who was still there who'd flown in had to go in quarantine retrospectively.
Yes.
So it's got to be we've decided no one comes into the room to train with us face to face until we can hug and not be in trouble.
Yes.
Because that level of intimacy must be attainable, because the worst thing in our industry is for us to promote an event and then be the police of the participants, telling them to back away from each other, or you need to. We're not. We just keep saying to our community, we're not going to be your police. That would be horrible. But also, who's going to be legally liable if we didn't do that? Because it's going to be on us because we let too many people. So we just said, until it's normal, not COVID normal, we're not going back in the room. And normal means you can hug and you can have sleepovers and not worry about it. And you can share a glass and not freak out. It's got to be normal, because that's how they acted before. And I need them to be able to not have this weight on their minds. Am I doing the wrong thing? And us worrying about what's going on in the room. And also coaching, Karen, it's hugging. There's people are meeting each other for the very first time, becoming lifelong friends. We've had husbands and wives meet each other. We've had people have babies. I mean, there's all of this going, not in the room, but you know what I mean? So that
relationships are formed, absolutely.
Yeah, and the intimacy can't be denied. We can't be behind masks 1.5 meters and being self-conscious and be an effective coach. There's a level of intimacy that is required in it. So that was a really fast dive into how we've been in the last 12 months. Can we go back? Because I'm really curious. I have been following you for years, and I finally get to chat with you, which is wonderful. How did this all begin? How did you begin the growth faculty? Was it the growth faculty when you began? You have an amazing entrepreneurial story.
It wasn't the growth faculty when I first began. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey. And I guess sometimes when you look back on your career, you go, when you're amongst it, you sort of, zigzagging across. But I look back now and it kind of all makes sense. But I really started my career in London, actually, because I did high school and university in Perth. That's where my mother is as well.
Whereabouts?
She's in Mount Pleasant.
Where did you go to school?
Oh, I went to Santa Maria College.
Okay. I went to Korean high school.
Oh, there you go. So you were north of the river then. I was south of the river. Yes. So yes. And so I took off to the UK straight after university, just to really go traveling as we did back then. Just wanted some time out. And I landed a job, with a friend of mine who was actually bringing Anthony Robbins to London for the very first time. So,
just orientate me a little bit in time. When was this?
This was back in the early 90s.
Okay.
Early 90s, yeah. So, so back in the early 90s, so he, wins the right to bring Anthony Robbins to London. We're a team of 3.
Oh, wow.
No one had ever organized an event before in their lives. This man can sell ice to the Eskimos, right? So, so I got involved and we grew very quickly over 9 months. So we had to sell like 9,000 tickets. We were doing 4 events. So we did, Birmingham, Wembley. I think there was one other place, and we did the UPW, the Unleash the Power Within event at Alexandra Palace. And so, it was baptism by fire. I just got in there, and I remember him putting a computer on my desk. Okay, build the registration base. Off you go. And looked after the marketing partners, did the event, so as the project went along, I was just involved in every aspect of it. And my gosh, it was insane, but fun. And so we delivered this event, and we also did a Date with Destiny down in Cannes as well with Anthony Robbins. I did 2 years of that. So that was my introduction into event management. And I left
in it. Like he would have even back then been one of the biggest seminar presenters in the world.
He wasn't. It was such a long time ago, right?
And
now he's just he's escalated.
Did you hear about his current numbers? Did you hear about last week's numbers?
The one that he did virtually? No, I haven't.
Brace yourself. What did you think? 70,000?
Tens of thousands.
He had nearly 1 million people.
Wow.
870,000 people
Signed up for a UPW online.
Not a UPW, to this new event that he's never done before. Yeah, no,
Wow.
not a UPW.
Right.
I thought that was fantastic. He would have been in every country.
Of course. I mean, he's got such an extraordinary following, you know. I mean, that's just such a wonderful opportunity for him too, really, isn't it? You know, but you know, his events definitely need the intimacy and, you know, the fire walk, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot from that experience. And then I moved back to Australia, and I went to Sydney sight unseen. I stopped in at Perth, said hi to everybody, and came to Sydney. And I got a job at the Institute of Chartered Accountants, which actually was really the foundation for me to build, you know, CPE programs, you know, educational programs in an industry I knew nothing about. So I really learned the art of, you know, working with a committee and go, hey, I need the content. What's the right content? What are we going to get other accountants to come along to this event for? What's the hot issues? Who do we need to listen to? All that sort of stuff. So it really taught me the art of pulling programs together in industries I know nothing about, or not necessarily the technician in. So I spent 18 months there, and yeah, I got the foundation of event management, the other side of event management, right? So it's pulling programs, whereas, you know, Anthony Robbins was purely logistics on a large scale, right? And really understanding what the speaker wants, right? It's precise delivery, you know, and then I come to the Institute of Chartered Accountants and it's pulling programs together. So those two combined, voila, right? So I had always had this urge to start my own business. And really I was driven by the fact that, you know, I wanted the flexibility and freedom, you know, to be able to design my own life.
Yes.
So I
did you?
Sorry?
You believed that, did you? That's what
I believed it at the time. I'm like, so all I did was like, I was just replacing my job, right? So I don't want to answer to anybody, and I want to work when I want. And
that's exactly how it happened.
Yes, I know.